Here's Rick Rubin and André 3000 at Shangri-La.
When you were starting to make music, what would have been the touchstone influences that got you to want to actually make music?
I'll have to say Tribe and Dog Pound, Snoop and them. And just, it was, when you're at that point of discovery as a kid and you're seeing these new ways of doing things, these new ways of rapping, like the way hieroglyphics were rapping at the time, it was completely new.
Yeah. The phrasing was different.
Yes, the bending of words.
Absolutely.
Me and Eminem, we sat on the phone about an hour talking about hieroglyphics crew, like how those words, and we were trading.
Yeah.
Like their lyrics on the phone.
Yes.
Like, do you remember, man?
Yeah.
Like they sparked so much. They opened up a new door for everybody,
Beautiful.
I think. And I think just to be around that time and to be like, we were out when Wu was out. We were out when Nas was out. So, but we're from the South. So it's kind of like we had to step up. Like, I think that was the best blessing. I know people look at the footage of us winning the Source Award and what I had to say on stage, like, oh, it was messed up there being booed. But I think that was the biggest blessing for us to have to just be better.
Yeah.
Have to fight and really prove that we were really in to what we were doing. And I could understand how they may have taken, first album is just, just some Southern, riding around, Cadillac, smoking and eating chicken wings, kind of stuff like that. But it made us have to be better because we were on the road with Wu. We were on the road with Redman. We were opening up for these people. So we got that schooling. So we had to become better.
What's interesting about it too is that you did become better, but you didn't become at all like any of them. It really was completely original. And I think that's the reason why it still holds up to the test of time is I don't know anyone who's really made music since like the music that you made. It's very unique.
I would have to say that is because of the dungeon, like the kind of our incubator. Like the dungeon was basically a house with us, Goody Mob, PA. We were all in a basement, drum machines, house speakers, dirt, no walls, actually dirt where the furnace and all that kind of stuff was. And that was a place where you leave your job, leave school, you'll come down there and you might smoke, you might talk about issues, but you rapping. So I'm trading verses. Cujo over there trading verses. CeeLo come trade verses. So it was at a certain point, we started building our own slang, so it became a world in itself. So we like gained confidence in ourselves, like when I say king shit or somebody else say king shit, we knew what that meant because we would talk that way around the dungeon. So a certain confidence and a certain building of our vocabulary and building of our own styles. It was like we were creating this own world. So by the time it hit everybody else, it may have sounded like something else, but we were influenced by everything, man. There were times where I sounded Souls of Mischief-y, My very first rap that I remember writing out of high school, it sounded Q-tip-ish. You know what I mean? Because that's what I'm listening to.
Yeah, it makes sense. You hadn't really found your own voice yet. But you developed your skill as a writer, doing it like him to find your way in.
Yes.
And then eventually it's like, oh, well, that's more like him. And this other way is more like me.
Right.
Yeah.
I recently was at a club in LA, in this place where, indie bands play, like, first few shows you've ever played. And I saw a band and I saw them perform and they came and asked me what I thought after the performance. And I said, man, you got to keep going. You got to keep doing it. Because it's like, yeah, man, we've been trying to decide if we should wait till we get a deal before we do shows. I was like, no, because your training ground lets you know what you are.
Yes.
Who you are. Of course, you want to sound like everybody you love.
Yes.
But in the end, you really don't.
No.
You know what I mean? You don't. But you don't get to that point until you've put it out there and you've heard yourself sound horrible or you've heard yourself sound exactly like something, but not as good as what you love.
Yes.
It takes that time. So a lot of our proving ground were in the dungeon.
Great.
You know, we didn't do a lot of shows, to be honest. It was, and it took me, and to that point, it took me a while to learn how to perform, actually. I mean, I could write. I was more of a writer, but even if you listen to the first album, I couldn't even enunciate or say my words, you know, like I wanted to, because those muscles weren't built.
Yes.
You know, and people don't understand that performing, even vocally, it is a muscle.
Yeah.
And you have to exercise it. And the more you exercise it, the stronger you get. The more you are in front of people, you know what works, what doesn't work, and you can play with that and bring it back into your writing. You have more confidence in your writing. So all those building moments are important to find your voice.
Absolutely. And there's really no shortcuts.
It's not.
You just have to do the work.
It's not, and it's hard. It's very hard. I remember times where Rico Wade, there would be times where I would come down and I say, Rick, check this out. And I would bust a verse for him, blah, blah, blah. And he would just get up and walk away. Not say anything. And I was like, fuck wrong with him? You know what I mean? Like, damn, this shit kind of disrespectful, you know what I mean? But it took me a minute to realize that wasn't it.
Yeah.
And then I remember one time I maybe had smoked a joint and then went in the booth, and I was kind of out of it. And I just started rapping with my normal voice, like my speaking voice. And Rick said, that's it. And that was it.
Yeah. It's amazing how those breakthroughs happen almost when you're not really looking. You know, like when you're not paying attention, something happens.
You got to move out the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you got to work for moving out the way too. You got to,
absolutely.
You know what I mean?
You can't move out the way so far that nothing happens.
Yeah.
So you have to work hard and then wait for that moment where it's like, there it is.
Yeah.
You know, be open to recognizing it when it happens.
Yeah. But community, man, like,
yeah.
It's funny because, and thank you for the opportunity to be on this podcast, but when I learned that I was coming and, you know, I learned that it was you and Malcolm's thing, I'd never read any of Malcolm's books. I bought them.
Yes.
And then I went on the road and did something and I forgot to read them. So I was like, all right, out of respect, let me read, you know, at least read a book.
Yeah.
And I don't read much. I actually don't.
Yes.
And so I read Outliers and it blew my mind. It completely blew my mind. And it really made me think of the community that gives you opportunity to be all of this. And that's what the dungeon.
Yeah. And had there not been a dungeon, who knows what you would have done? You know, like it really, and that wasn't anything that you decided to make happen. It's like so much of it is
chance. It was,
yeah, like things just happen. The universe sets up a situation and something good happens. Something comes out of it. I was just talking about that today earlier with my friend. When I was going to college, I decided between going to NYU and University of Chicago. And had I gone to University of Chicago, my whole life would have been different because hip hop was happening in New York and I happened to be there.
Yep.
But if I was somewhere else, I wouldn't have known what was going on there because I wouldn't have been in it.
Yep.
And that's just luck. You know,
it is, it's luck, it's chance, it's maybe you were just, it was supposed to happen to you.
And I believe in that as well. It's so much of it is out of our control, but I'm always grateful when something good happens. You know, it's like, I know I can't make it happen, but I know that I can be open to it happen. I'll invite it in and welcome it and do everything I can to best support this thing that arrives that I know is bigger than me.
Yes.
You know?
It's magical. It really is magical.
It really is. And it's the hardest part of that is when something bad happens and feeling the bad thing and remembering, trying to separate ourselves from the thing that happened that didn't work out or didn't go the way we wanted it to go. And to say, okay, imagine that's a scene in a movie. I can't wait to see what happens next.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of just sinking into the vibe, because it's the same vibe of when the good thing happens. It's the same. It's like good things happen, bad things happen. That's all part of life.
Yeah.
And just sort of staying neutral and riding the wave, you know?
I'm still learning that, you know.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
That's riding. You said it. Riding that wave is hard because you dip down low. Sometimes you get stuck, you know.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're used to the wave going a certain way.
Yes.
You know, and I think that's when you have to kind of lay yourself down and kind of just let it be.
Yeah.
You know, and that's hard. It's hard for me.
Yes.
It's very hard for me.
Yes. What have you been listening to lately?
Instrumental music. I was just turned on to Steve Reich.
Wow, great.
I just now, like, and I'm like, where the hell have I been? Because I
Incredible.
knew Philip Glass. I was always into Philip Glass, but I never. Then somebody said, well, if you like Philip Glass, you'll love Steve Reich. And I was like, what? When I heard that, I was like, what? Yeah, I've been into a lot of instrumental music now. Because I just at a point where sometimes I feel like a lot of lyrics just bombard you. You know, and I know it sounds crazy coming from a rap artist, but I think sometimes, you know, sometimes the thoughts just take over, you know, and then not necessarily anything you want to be a part of. You want to party and, you know, but I kind of like music that I can have my own thoughts to.
Yes.
You know, so
Beautiful.
that's kind of where I've been lately.
Beautiful. What's your process like making music these days? Do you make much? Not so much? How would you say?
I haven't been making much music, man. My focus is not there. My confidence is not there. I tinker a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll just go to a piano and I'll set my iPhone down and just record what I'm doing, move my fingers around and whatever happens. But I hadn't been motivated to do a serious project. I'd like to, but it's just not coming. In my own self, I'm trying to figure out where do I sit. You know, I don't even know what I am, and maybe I'm nothing. Maybe I'm not supposed to be anything. Maybe you know, my history is kind of handicapping in a way.
Yeah,
and so I'm just trying to find out what makes me feel the best right now.
Yes.
And what makes me feel the best is when I just do these random kind of instrumental kind of things. You know, they make me feel the most rebellious.
Yes.
You know, I don't know. I have a really rebellious spirit. I don't like to go with the flow, really. I don't know why.
Yes.
But I just feel best when I don't.
Yes.
You know, so I have to honor that.
I completely understand.
I have to honor that in a way, you know.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I think so much of it isn't to be decided.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying? It's not, I don't think it's to be figured out. I think it's more to be, I think you start making a lot of things with no thinking of what it's supposed to be or who's it for or what anyone else is going to think, but just get in the habit of making a lot.
That's what I got to get back to.
Yeah, just make a lot. And then at some point in that process, you'd be like, I really like this. It did. And you didn't know, like through that whole process, you don't know when that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's not a decision you make, and it's not an intellectual idea where I have a vision and I'm going to make this thing. It doesn't happen like that. Rarely happens like that. It happens more just having fun, making things, no stakes. You know, there's nothing's on the line.
But see, that's I'm glad you say that. It's hard to do when everything is actually, I mean, when the problem with being an artist, a successful artist,
yes,
is you have to find a comfortable place to do that again.
Yes. But think about the way
a comfortable place to feel uncomfortable
yes,
is what I'm saying.
But the way that you made the stuff that ended up being successful wasn't made from a place of feeling any responsibility.
Right. Because the attention wasn't there just
at all
yet, in a way. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you were still proving yourself. And I liken it to, like, if you're a kid and you're in your room, you're playing, you know, with toys, and you and you have this world going on.
Yes.
The moment when your mom opens the door and says, Andre, that world kind of stops.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So once the attention is on that world,
Yes.
the world goes away. So you got to find a way to get back to that place to where you can build those worlds again and not have the eyes or like the judging, you know. And that's hard for me. It's really hard for me because, and I mean, you see it everywhere now. Any little thing I put out is instantly like attacked, not in a good or bad way.
I wouldn't say attacked.
Well, I'm saying the
it's
the
noticed.
attention. Yeah, and people nitpick it like with fine tooth combs.
Yes.
Like, oh, he said that word.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that's not a great place to create from. You know what I mean? And it makes you draw back. And then maybe I don't have the confidence that I want or the space to experiment like I used to.
Yes.
When the stuff that people loved from back then, it was in a place.
You were free.
Yeah, you're free. You didn't give a shit. You didn't care, like, because they didn't care. They didn't even like you.
No.
You know what I mean? So it was like, great. Don't like what we're doing.
Yes.
Now we can just do what we're doing.
But the same holds true now. So now you can make stuff that as long as you like it, it doesn't matter if they like it or not because they hated you back then. It's the same. Do you know what I'm saying? The only thing that's changed is your point of view, really.
Yes. I do realize that.
Nothing else has changed. And that is within your control. You can decide to read what someone else says or give them that power, or you can say they can think what they want. And usually, here's another part of it. This is very interesting. When someone is critical of something you do, usually that's more about them than it is about you. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like that's what they see because of who they are.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with you.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, that brings to another point because I've noticed that I'm very judgmental at this point of my own self. So is that saying that I'm just in a not so great place?
Yes.
You know, yeah, and I feel that. I feel very judgmental and I hate it. Like I don't want to be judgmental. It's almost like being a movie director. Yeah. But not being able to go to the movie theater and see movies on Friday like you used to because you're judging every shot.
Yes.
You're judging every lighting situation. You're like, oh man, they ADR'd that one. You know, it's kind of like, how do you get away from that? Yeah,
it's almost like you know too much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know too much.
And I think as you go along, just got to find a way to break free of everything you know. And that's very hard. That's very hard.
Yeah.
Even melody wise, like I'm getting sick of my melodies.
Yeah.
Because they seem like they're tied to something that I know, so I try to just throw notes anywhere just to try.
Just have it not be what, not be regular.
Yeah. Understood. And I think that's that rebellious kind of Unri spirit, that turn left spirit when everybody's going this way because you're looking for something else.
Yes.
But it's very hard when you've been doing it for so long.
Understood.
It's very hard.
But moving forward to try to help work through this stuff, make something to where you're happy you made it. That's all. Like something you'd be happy to play for your friend. That would be the ultimate. That's the ultimate. I mean, for me, if I make something and I'm excited to play it for my friend, that's it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's what I've been doing lately.
That's it.
That's
the whole mission.
Yeah.
Growing up, would you say you were hard on yourself or?
Yeah, for sure. I think especially as a kid, when you're trying to fit in or trying to figure out what you are, like, am I cool like that? Or do I want to be hanging with these people? Or what do they think of me? Or, oh man, it's this girl, does she really like me? Or, you know, am I cool enough for it? Like all of those things that most kids go through, you get it. But I think I did do it a little bit more, and maybe because isolation. And I think when you're alone a lot, you contemplate.
Yes.
And when you have a lot of time to contemplate, sometimes it's not good.
Yeah.
You know? And so that's when I said, like, if I had brothers and sisters, I wouldn't have to worry about certain things.
Yes.
with social anxiety disorder. Like I was diagnosed years ago
Mhm.
and hypersensitivity.
Mhm.
Like with that kind of thing, isolation is not good,
Yeah.
but I feel most comfortable being isolated. So I
Yes.
spend 95% of my time by myself,
Yes.
you know, and that gives you time to analyze.
Yeah.
And the brain loves to find problems,
Absolutely.
even if they're not there.
Absolutely.
And so the judgmental kind of analyzing is kind of run amok.
Yeah.
So you have to find ways to break out of that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And but the other side of it is it's that same hypersensitivity that makes you a great artist. You know,
Yeah,
it's like
my therapist said the same thing.
it's the truth.
It's like,
it's the truth. It's a balance. It's like it's a blessing and a curse.
yeah.
It's harder to be in the world, but that's the gift. And it's I know.
It's oh man, it's there have been times where I was like, I've prayed
Yes.
to a God that I didn't even know it existed, really.
Yes.
Prayed like, I would rather you take this away from me.
Yes.
All of this.
And just
if
not
I could
have
just
to
feel normal.
like that. Yeah.
If I could just feel normal, like
Yes.
take voice, career, all that shit. You can have it.
Yes.
If I could feel normal.
Yes.
But it don't work like that.
No.
It just don't.
It's really sad, but that's why a lot of artists OD. That's why young artists die from drugs is they're sensitive people. There's especially in success, there's all this emotion that no one teaches us how to deal with.
No.
And it's weird. Even people that you know for a long time start acting different to you.
Yes. And you start acting different because they start acting different.
It's weird.
It's a bad thing.
The whole thing's unnatural. No one teaches you how to deal with it. And it's crazy. It's a crazy making process.
Yes.
And
yes.
And so people do stuff to try to just numb that pain.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It makes sense. It's self-medication. You know, it's like, I just don't want to feel everything all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I understand.
Yeah. Yeah, you got it. You got it.
Well, we're alike in many ways.
Yeah. And even a lot of people in the world too, I'm finding, I think we do get it differently because of the career we've chosen or that chose us, but when researching, this condition, there are kids that have it.
Yeah.
There are kids that just don't know how to deal in the world.
Yes.
In that way,
Yes.
And I think
especially if your parents aren't as sensitive as you are, then it's really confusing. Because it's like they're the adults. They're supposed to know everything.
Yeah.
And they don't even see this stuff that's happening.
Yeah. And you can't explain it.
No, they don't. They're just like, oh, why are you thinking about that?
And then, I'm talking about in the last 15, 20 years. We just now starting to get titles for this stuff.
Yeah.
Names that you call it.
Yeah.
What about the people that didn't have the names for it back then? Or didn't have medicine for it?
Absolutely.
What do you do?
Yeah.
You can't sit and have a conversation. Yeah, there's a social anxiety thing. What?
Yeah.
That wasn't even invented.
Yeah.
When we first started rapping, none of those words were out. Now bipolarism and, all that kind of stuff is like, it's almost like commonplace now.
Yeah.
If someone says I have anxiety, it's like, oh, okay, just go take a nap. That's kind of what it's like now, because it's so common.
Yeah.
But it's
and it may have always been, just no one knew. It was
right.
Like you say, and people didn't want to look at it or talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And now people are more open, luckily, because it's helpful to others feeling it. We're not alone.
Yep.
It's so helpful to know that I'm not the only person who feels this way all the time.
Yeah. It doesn't make it easier.
No.
But
it is a little better. It's a little...
It's just to be understood. It's better.
Feel less alone.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But here's another thing a friend of mine pointed out, that when we talk about isolation, in certain societies, they don't have these things.
Mm-mm.
Like when you're like, if it's not a chemical thing, if it's a social thing, like if you're in a house with 10 other people, your family, and you're all surviving, you don't have time to have that.
Yes.
And you're faced with these people.
Yes.
So you don't have a kind of like this social kind of dwarfing. And that's interesting to me, you know?
Absolutely. And also the success part of it is a key piece of it too, because when you suffer from depression, let's say, and you feel like there's this hole in you, you don't know what it is. You just know you feel bad. But you have this dream. Well, I'm gonna through music, I see these people doing this and I love this.
Yeah.
And when I do that, the hole's gonna go away.
Yeah. Oh no.
But at least during that time, you have hope because you know I'm gonna work really hard because I want to feel better than I feel now. And you do all this work, and that hole is the thing that allows you to have that drive and perspective to break through.
Yeah.
And then you break through and your dreams come true and the hole is exactly the same.
Yes.
And then you're hopeless.
And actually, it opens up a little bit more.
Absolutely. Because now, what I was spending all my time my way of solving it, I did it and it didn't work at all.
Yeah.
If anything, as you said, maybe it's worse. I can remember, it's funny, and I'll only remember this because there happened to be a phone call. If it wasn't for this phone call, I would not remember this story. But I had produced the first Beastie Boys album. It came out and it became the #1 album in the country. And I remember my music lawyer calling me and he said, "You have the #1 album in the country. How do you feel?" And I said, "I've never felt worse in my whole life."
Yeah, man.
And had that call not happened, I wouldn't remember how I felt.
Yeah.
But in that moment, because of the call, that's how I was feeling.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. And people would think that that's the best thing.
Yeah.
Or the best thing to hear.
But it has nothing to do with it. It's like, that's the other thing, is like, it's like a false, until it happens, you don't know, because we're hopeful, you know, something's going to make it better. If a dream comes true, that's going to make it better. Nope.
Or just to get the acceptance. You think like you will get love. You know what I mean? But you will also get everything else that comes with it too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. In a way, in success, it's more isolating.
Oh, very.
And more lonely making and less community. And like we said, people treat you differently. And it's hard to have regular conversation. Not because you don't want to. It's like the whole world has changed.
It's a bad plight.
Yeah.
The more higher you climb, the more success that you have, you become more and more isolated. Yeah. You spend more times in hotels.
Yeah.
You spend less time around people.
Yes.
And your writing kind of goes to shit too.
Yeah. When
that starts to happen too.
Because your life becomes about being on tour, which is not really interesting to talk about.
Yeah. And no one wants to hear like, I'm sad, because I'm successful. I don't want to hear that shit.
No. Or back on the road again. Like there's all those records. Yeah. Being on the bands who just would tour forever, and all the songs were about being on the road because that's all I had to talk about.
Yeah, and I don't like it, man. So, I try to do things, and I really get enjoyment. Like, I don't have bodyguards, man. I'm my only child, so I go everywhere by myself. I actually love to go to the laundromat and wash clothes. Like, I love that, man. Like, I love being in the most normal place I can be.
Yeah.
Because even if it's, I could buy a washer and dryer and wash at home.
Yeah.
But it's something about going to the laundromat and sitting there.
It's social.
Yeah.
It is social.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's something about it.
Absolutely.
There's some, I don't know, you may know it. There's some blues artist that I think he wrote a lyric that the song kind of story went that he'd gotten successful, and now he's going to have to hire a woman to break his heart to be able to write blues songs. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, and that's a weird place to be.
Yeah.
And that's why I love new artists. That's why I love going to these shit clubs and watching bands because I remember that feeling. Like, and I know what it feels like to not be known.
Yes.
And when you're fighting to be known.
Yes.
And when you're doing it because you just love it.
Yeah.
That's a different thing.
Absolutely.
And I like that energy.
It's not, nobody at those clubs are punching the clock, trying to get it done.
They got to get up in the morning and go to their real work.
Yeah. And when you think about it, when that cycle of being on the road all the time, when that turns into a job, it's a grueling job.
Yeah.
It is especially all the travel, flying. It's exhausting. It's lonely. And all of it is for this, like, an hour or two at night. And it's kind of exciting because people like it. But even that, when you've done the same thing for a while, starts feeling like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I did this last night.
Yep. I knew it became a problem for me like years ago. I mean, this had to be like 15, 20 years ago. I was on stage doing some song. I don't remember what it was, but I'd done it so much that it was kind of just in my skin, and I'm, going through it, and I'm in it.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about, what am I going to eat tonight?
Yeah.
Get back to the hotel.
Yeah.
And that thought, it freaked me out.
Absolutely.
Because it was like I was on overdrive.
Yeah.
But I was somewhere else.
Yeah. Autopilot.
Yeah.
It was just going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And at that point, I think you just, as the artist, I mean, of course you have responsibilities you got to do, but you got to find a way to shake yourself up. You got to find a way to change it.
Absolutely.
And I hadn't toured in ages, man. Like, and I said, if I ever were to get on stage again in that kind of way, like it would be in the shittiest clubs ever.
Yeah.
It would be like I want to perform at all the flea markets around the world.
Great.
You know what I mean? Like,
great.
Yeah, like it just to feel something different.
Yeah.
Another thing too, the more success you have too, seems like the further the crowd gets from you.
Absolutely.
So by the time you get to festivals,
yeah,
they are 20 feet back.
Yeah.
You can't even touch nobody.
No, and and you can't like even see really faces, lights on you.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of like a mass of people. It's like they talk about that. It's like if one person gets in an accident or gets killed, you really feel it because of the personality of the person. But when you read, that 10,000 people just died because of an earthquake, it's a different, because it becomes faceless. The more people, the more faceless it becomes. And you don't have that connection.
Yeah. It's not that one person in the front row.
Yeah. You're excited.
Yeah,
you see their excitement.
Yeah. So
and
it's going, you
feels
going.
Good.
Yeah, that exchange. Yeah.
What type of meditation practice do you do?
None. I started messing around with bass clarinet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a breathing kind of thing, And so I would hope my goal is to learn how to, so that I can get my practice in every day, to incorporate practicing and meditation, like with the breathing.
Yes.
In some kind of way to make it one kind of thing, So, I start my day that way.
Beautiful. How did you pick that instrument?
I was messing around with saxophone a little bit because listening to John Coltrane. So one day I was like, I'm kind of one of those, let me just try it. Let me just pick it up kind of person.
Yeah.
So I didn't get lessons or anything. I immediately had an armature that worked. And so I could get sound out of it. And then that moved me. Oh, and then I read that Coltrane played clarinet first before he played saxophone.
Mm-hmm.
And so that made me try clarinet. And so I had the normal B-flat clarinet. And one day we was in New York on tour or something. And I went into this used instrument shop and I saw a used bass clarinet, and I just got it.
Yeah.
And I never went back to the normal clarinet. The bass clarinet is where it's at for me. Like
beautiful.
The deep tones.
Yeah.
Like I feel those tones,
Yeah.
And I'm in a place where I've never been disciplined with anything. And that's one of my biggest issues. I've always kind of just been so wired and just trying everything that I've never been great at anything. That it's important for me to try to really, really dedicate myself to something, to lessons now. So I'm trying to take it a little bit more seriously.
Yeah.
Not for any goal or anything, just to
practice.
Yeah, to practice and to be able to play whatever I hear, basically, or play whatever I want to.
Yes.
Play whatever I'm hearing in my head, or really to play along with anything.
Yes.
That's one of my biggest goals, to be able to, if someone's in a park singing something, I can just come on in and just mess around.
It'd be fun.
Yeah, those are my biggest goals now. A friend of mine was laughing at me because I was like, with the history of what we've done so far, my goals are not grand at all anymore. My goals are like, I want to be able to go to a park.
Yes.
And just play.
Yeah.
I do it sometimes. Now I go to the beach sometimes and just play.
Yeah.
I go to a park. I'm not great, but I want to be able to soothe. I want to be able to just kind of serenade or soothe by playing.
Beautiful.
Who's ever around,
Yeah. Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like there was another influence in your old work that wasn't coming from hip hop.
Oh yeah, most of my influence is early. So you have to like with OutKast, it's kind of like, even before we had our first album, I remember there were times in the dungeon, I'm like, big shit, let's paint our faces, man, and just let's do like this kind of rockish kind of sound that's not hip hop at all, and then we'll go do rap. Like, it was always searching for other things.
Yeah.
And I think that comes from the community. Once again, like, because Dallas Austin was doing alternative things.
Yeah.
Joy had came into town. She was doing alternative things. Like, she had brought the circus into town. And so all those influences. And we were kids, so we actually got to see Kurt Cobain perform on TV. Wow. Like, we were kids, but
yeah.
And I think it influenced us so much in a certain way. So those acts were really, really, really like influential. Even like Rage Against the Machine. Like, I wouldn't have done Bombs Over Baghdad if it wasn't for Rage Against the Machine.
Wow.
Because I felt urgency in their music. So I was like, how can I add urgency to what we're doing?
Yes.
It doesn't sound like Rage Against the Machine.
No, but energetically.
Yes. Yeah. So
you could play them back to back at the party and the same dancing would continue.
It's the energy.
Yeah.
And I tell any musician, when I meet people on the street, like, well, what advice could you give me? I was like, well, you have all the answers. Like, you have it. The only thing I could say is listen to everything outside of your genre.
Yes.
A lot of times it'll help your genre.
Yes.
In some type of way, because if everybody's kind of just listen to the exact same thing, it kind of gets like incestuous in a little, maybe, but you get inspiration.
It gets more samey though. And
yes.
This is the way it's those combinations that make it new.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the beauty of it is the new could be made by anybody. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to be new to make new.
That's a good argument.
It's true, because it's really more about, it's the sensibility. Like when Radiohead made Kid A, that was new Radiohead.
Mm-hmm.
Radiohead transformed from the band that they were. And when I first heard it, I loved Radiohead. And when I first heard it, I was a little taken aback.
Yeah.
Same thing happened first time I heard 808s.
Yeah.
It's like, do I want to hear Kanye singing? I don't know. Like, this is not why I listen to Kanye.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a minute. And often those are the things that you come around to liking the best. It's like when the first time you hear it, it's like you don't necessarily have the framework to understand, especially if you're expecting something different. So that's, that's an important point, because with a new artist, you're not expecting anything. So there's no expectation.
Right.
So when someone that you like what they do makes a left turn, sometimes that's really jarring.
Yes. Yeah, I'm familiar, man. Some people.
Yeah. But then it takes a minute and you realize, like in both of those cases, now when I listen back, Kid A and 808s are two of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
but maybe not the first time I heard them.
Yeah. Take a minute.
Absolutely. When we were making Yeezus, a lot of, I knew a lot of people were not going to like it, but we loved it. And I knew that probably people come around because it's really good. It's just not what they're expecting.
Right.
And when you give someone something that they're not expecting, the first instinct is, oh, that's not what I wanted.
Yeah,
I didn't order that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. You say you don't have to be new to make new. I agree.
Yeah. Because I've been making music for a long time, I've learned a lot of stuff along the way, but I don't let that get in the way. I don't let that impede the process of making something new.
Right. Are there any examples of like bands or groups that have made new when they've been around for a long time?
Yes. And we'll
I mean, not in your
Kid A was the first one that I thought of.
But that was still a trajectory of a band.
But the Benz was incredible. OK Computer was, considered that's their.
But it was going that way. Oh, even with OK Computer, it was going that way.
But Kid A was not continuing that. It was just left turn, and a lot of people didn't like it. Me included at first.
Right.
First time I heard it.
Right.
Then they were on Saturday Night Live, and I saw them perform some of those songs live. And then was my first clue. It's like, oh, I see what this is now. Like I couldn't really get it from the record at first. And then when I saw that, it helped me bridge my expectation versus this beautiful new thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I struggle with that, man. I struggle with
same to you remember Paul Simon was already Paul Simon. He had been Simon and Garfunkel and made a load of hits as Paul Simon.
Yeah.
Some might have thought he was sort of on the downswing, and then he made Graceland, and that was one of his biggest albums. And in the case of, we were talking about the Beatles earlier, Sgt. Pepper, that was the case. The reason it's called Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band was, I think it was Paul who had the idea of, the Beatles were so big and so familiar, to make something new, let's become a different band. And let's play the characters of Sgt. Pepper and his Lonely Hearts Club Band. Yeah. What do they sound like? Yeah. And now we're free. And it's just, and it's both, and it was both, even for them as writers, it was a way just to stimulate writing.
Yeah.
It's an exercise sometimes I give artists to do is to, and this might be a fun one for you, is pick an artist, pick one of your favorite artists, could be whoever it is, could be Prince, could be whoever. And let's say you had a chance to write a song for Prince to do, and write a song with the idea of, this is a song I'm going to get Prince to sing.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it would be completely different than what you'd write for yourself.
Yeah, I know exactly. The song Prototype, I actually wrote it in mind for Janet Jackson to sing. I wanted to just submit for her to sing the song. She probably don't even know it, but Prototype was written in that way. And once I laid down, demo, it's like, it feels better. It feels realer, if I did it, you know? And another song, She's Alive, on Love Below, like I really wanted Anita Baker to sing it.
Yeah.
And so it's my bad version of Anita Baker.
Yeah.
And I know it doesn't sound like it, but that's kind of how it is.
Do you have an idea of where your fashion sense started?
Yeah. Album covers, all the influences around me, like in the city of Atlanta, it was kind of like I call it like the circus, like came to town, a certain kind of buzz of things that, J.O.I. was doing, things that Dallas Austin was doing. My homie Big Gip, he was huge influence on the whole, like a alt scene of dressing. And even Busta Rhymes doesn't get enough credit, but Busta Rhymes was really influential in that too. Funk albums, like my heroes like George Clinton and Sly and Prince and even Cameo were huge influences. And being that I draw, I drew comic book characters, it was fun for me to draw my costumes and draw the things that I wore. And it was like liberating too. Because at first, we just, wore whatever was happening at the time. And I do remember there was a point when, I think we talked about it a little bit before, but there was a point when I just started growing my hair and growing my dreads. Like we had whole Dungeon family, we went to Jamaica. And I said, like I went swimming in the ocean. And after I left swimming, I was like, man, I ain't never combing my hair ever again. Like that, I just told myself, okay, I'm not combing my hair. So I started getting these dreads. But when you first starting to grow dreads, it's kind of like a certain stage where they just don't look really cool. It's like they short and, they're not hanging yet, So I was trying to find something to cover my head up with. And so at first it was like, okay, I'll just rock this bandana to cover my head up. But then it was kind of like, at the time, Tupac was so like just everywhere, and Tupac rocked the bandana, and I didn't want to, get into that bag. And so I was like, well, let me just try something else. And one day, I don't know what made me do it, but I was just in the beauty supply store and I saw this little, a turban, but it was kind of like these real cheap turbans. They come in all kind of colors that your grandmama might wear to church. And I grabbed a couple of them and I just started rocking them, like a turban. And I used to sometimes even take fabric and wrap my hair up like rosters. And so it was all really about just trying to find a way to feel cool or look cool. And that turned into moving more into an alt style. And then, I started to see people in the street rocking turbans, so it was like, okay, this is fun. I look cool. And then at a certain point, it got to where people, like certain fans were like thrown off by, okay, you look one way and then you came this way. And it became like intriguing to me that it pissed a lot of people off. So I just kind of dug in the whole way and like just fucking with people. So, I mean, playing with androgyny, playing with wigs, and the whole comic book drawing aspect of it. Like I always wanted to look like I was from another planet. So around the ATLiens time, that's when it really started to come into play. And the white wig was about being from another planet. So I always felt like people from another planet, they were just wise or, all they had was white. And so that's where the white wig came from. But style-wise, man, it was everything around me. Like all influences around me, like my whole crew, like things that were brought to the city, even Missy Elliott at times, like even Digital Underground and Humpty, like all those were influences to me. But we just tried to find a way to do it in a new way. And once I started to be able to draw and make my own clothes, that was out of here. It was fun. It was completely fun. Like, cause we felt like not of this planet. We were making music, that was otherworldly. So it's like, well, let me look like the music.
And did you look like that every day or just on stage? Nah,
at a certain point, it was like you couldn't tell the difference.
Yeah.
It was like
you began to live
rock
it.
Whatever in the street too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just kind of like full in.
And it just happened naturally that the transition from it started as a stage costume, and then it evolved into just like how it was.
Well, it started as like, how can I look cool in the street too? But then it progressed to, how can I make this music that we're making look cool, make it look like it's sounding, because I wanted to go other places. I started producing on our second album. ATLiens is when I started producing. And so at that point, Ray, he showed me the game of how to produce. He showed me which records to buy, kind of which dates, which years, which years had certain drums. And, when you're sitting around and just looking at album covers and you're seeing like all these like interesting looking people and, Parliament Funkadelic and Sly and them, like these were like my heroes at that point. And like I would buy videotapes and, find like go down to Little 5 Points in Atlanta. It was kind of like the village of Atlanta. And I would buy like little videotapes or like bootleg performances, like when they, bootleg Funkadelic performances and stuff like that. So I'm looking at it and just getting amped, like getting like, wow, this is awesome. And so I found a way to make it work for me, you know, because I was like, I felt like I was part of that lineage.
Yes.
And so me, my whole crew, we were like a ragtag, kind of like funkadelic in a way, like, because we all came from, you know, different places. We all brought something different to the music, and it felt that way to me. And so really, we just went on in, man, and that's just how it was.
Also interesting, the connection to Parliament and the Mothership connection, and they wanted to be from outer space too.
Yeah.
You know?
And even Sun Ra too.
Sun Ra too.
Influence.
And I would say even like in early hip hop, Grandmaster Flash kind of had a sort of outer space.
Yeah. See, even all those were influences too. Yeah. Grandmaster, all that was like our influences. That's just, to me, it was the people that were going places, that were doing something outside of, that was really interesting.
Yeah.
To me. And even even later on, when you look at like a Prototype, the video for Prototype, that was really a riff on me doing Sam Ra did a movie called Space is the Place.
I've seen it.
Yeah, and the Prototype video is basically like my version of Space is the Place, you know, coming from this other planet and me meeting this girl. But it was a love story, kind of, but the setting of coming from, you know, when they come out the spaceship and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, all those people were like crazy influences to me.
So cool.
This is one of those conversations that could have gone on forever, and in fact, it did. Rick and André continued talking about how André played the flute for random Starbucks customers before the interview, about mystical experiences, their shared love of James Blake, and so much more. But this is where we'll have to leave it for now. Our sincerest thanks to André 3000 for his music and his words. We'll be back on Thursday with an episode from Brittany Howard of the Alabama Shakes, and then Broken Record is going on a short hiatus. But we'll be back up in January with episodes of the podcast that I'm really excited to share. Ozzy Osbourne with Sharon, Bob Weir, Kenny Beats, Booker T of the MGs, Nick Lowe, The XX, and more. For now, if you'd like to hear a curated playlist of André's music or any of our other past shows, check us out at brokenrecordpodcast.com. You can also sign up for a behind-the-scenes newsletter while you're there. Broken Record is produced with help from Jason Gambrell, Mia Lobel, and Leah Rose for Pushkin Industries. Our theme music's by the great producer Kenny Beats. I'm Justin Richmond. Thanks for listening.